So if you've been following the channel for any amount of time, you know that I go out of my way to avoid talking about immigration because I think it's a topic where people, they have this really bad problem with like losing their minds if you don't agree with every single thing they said. And if you support any of the undocumented citizens coming over and staying, you're like accused of abiding criminals. And then if you talk about deportations, you're accused of being, I guess, hostile. There's a lot of bad blood. But what I've actually seen is, me being accused of being some kind of arbiter or supporter of, this unlawful crossing. And I'm just like, you guys are the same ones who vote for presidents that commit war crimes over and over. So don't act like you're some high and mighty special person. But let's get to this story. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents on Wednesday arrested roughly 680 undocumented immigrants at 7 Mississippi poultry processing facilities. An ICE spokesman confirmed the raids to the Hill, saying it was part of a coordinated operation with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Mississippi, in what is believed to be the largest single-state immigration enforcement operation in our nation's history. Today, at 7 sites, ICE HSI special agents executed administrative and criminal search warrants, resulting in the detention of approximately 680 illegal aliens. Mike Hurst, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Mississippi, said Wednesday afternoon. The arrests today were part of a year-long investigation, ICE Acting Director Matt Albence added. Detained employees at a Koch Foods plant in Morton, Mississippi, 40 miles east of Jackson, were boarded on 3 buses and taken to the Mississippi National Guard base in Flowood, Mississippi for processing, according to the Associated Press. It said agents searched the plant, asking employees for identification. Those who could not prove their legal residence were detained, while those with papers had their lockers searched and were released. Poultry processing relies heavily on immigrant labor to clean, cut, and package chicken parts for consumption. Activists and labor unions have long accused the poultry industry of abusing undocumented workers who can't appeal to the federal government for protection. Koch Foods, the Illinois-based company that operates some of the raided plants, did not immediately return a request for comment. Koch Foods is not connected to billionaire mega donor Charles Koch. The Mississippi raids follow a large-scale raid last year in Ohio, where a large landscaping company was investigated by ICE. President Trump vowed in June to deport millions of undocumented immigrants from the interior of the country as immigration detention centers exceed their capacity, packed with asylum-seeking detainees from the U.S.-Mexico border. Okay, so the biggest thing to take away from this part, because we have another article that is part of this story, is the fact that you have these people who, if they were unable to identify themselves as like having legal residence here, they were just taken. And, you had all these children that were just kind of at school and left to just sort of, I guess, find their way back to their house. And this is kind of my key point here, which is that this investigation is said to have been a year long, right? You can spend a year looking for these people, but you can't spend any amount of time trying to figure out how to, I don't know, make this transition in a much more smoother way. I mean, think about it. If these agents had prepared for these children to potentially not come home to parents, couldn't they have theoretically had some of the agents pick them up and explain what was going on? Or, I just don't understand what about that would have been such an issue. And like, I'm really ridiculous and on the side of the illegals for saying I don't think little kids should come back home from school and suddenly find their parents like absent with no explanation. Whatever, man. People, they get pissed off over everything. But, there were a lot of nativists cheering and, saying, oh, what a wonderful thing that occurred. So then, look at this. 300 of 680 people detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, in several raids across Mississippi Wednesday were released, the agency said Wednesday night. Just less than half of those detained in the raids on 7 food processing plants in Bay Springs, Carthage, Canton, Morton, Pelhatchie, Sebastopol were released from custody Wednesday evening. ICE spokesman Brian Cox told the Mississippi Clarion Ledger Thursday. Cox said Wednesday afternoon that while everyone detained would be processed, not everyone is going to be permanently deported. According to the newspaper, the American Civil Liberties Union of Mississippi called the raids the biggest single-state immigration enforcement operation in history, unnecessary and cruel. We are deeply concerned about the raids, we are deeply concerned that the raids have separated Mississippi families, disrupted our local economy, and diverted our state's limited resources to support Trump's mass deportation agenda, ACLU of Mississippi legal director and interim executive director Joshua Tom said in a statement. Local law enforcement should refuse to cooperate with the president's anti-immigrant policies. We stand in solidarity and are committed to help the families harmed. He added, I guess they're going to be accused of helping the illegals as well. So the bottom line is this. When you have a big agenda and you can't afford certain parts of it, like, guys, we have an over 700 billion military budget for at least the second year in a row. Maybe some of that could, and I always say that, you know, these people always trick themselves into thinking that you just give more money to these overseas conflicts and there's going to be some kind of actual change. And as I mentioned before, Trump has kept us in every single one of the 7 wars that Obama had. You know, both are warmongers, but whatever. The point is that I said before, if that funding were used for domestic programs in the U.S., we might not have the same crappy ton we have a lot of in many instances. And this includes that, where maybe they could have used, I don't know, 1 billion of those dollars to bring some, you know, American troops or actual citizens down there to take care of these children while they tried to figure out what was going on with the parents. But like I said, this is why the U.S. government is so hypocritical. They put this thing about, oh, we had a year-long investigation. But then it's handled so sloppily that not only do you take in people who are later found to be able to prove that they're, you know, legally here, but you also have a bunch of, you know, family members who get displaced during this. So, you know, this is what I was talking about when I said this thing is like, these are very basic rebuttals to, you know, something that I'm not even entirely, I mean, I think this was stupid overall because these are working people and, you know, unless they committed a crime, I think they should stay here. But the point is, you have a lot of these nativists who, like, have this weird animosity toward this group and, like, they don't do anything to them. Like, you even heard it in here how these companies will take the fact that these people, you know, don't have documentation and use that to their advantage. They'll go, oh, you want a higher wage? Well, let's see if what ICE thinks about that. You know, just they think that the people with no power are doing all this oppressive stuff to them, and it's so ridiculous. But whatever. This is why the U.S. is going to hell. So into the toilet we continue.